TAC and the staff that are present, and would ask Allison and Daniel at this point, or Daniel, or do they raise their hand if they want to speak and then you unmute them, or what's the, how does the logistics work, Allison?
Yes, I believe they have the option to request to speak.
Okay. And they do that now, or they've done that previously?
I'm sorry, say that again?
They do that at this point, or they've done it previously, or how do they?
We don't have any requests as of yet.
Okay. So I would say, Mr. Chair, at this point, there are no requests to speak in the call to public, but that is an option moving forward. And so we don't have any call to or any responses at this point.
Okay, let me just make sure. And I think what we've done in other meetings is just for the public, there's on the bottom of my screen at least, there may be an option for you to click a button and raise your hand. So let's give it just a second to see if anyone wants to click on that raise your hand button to speak, and that might give Allison an indication.
And I would also add, Mr. Chair, too, you also, members of the public, you do have the option to put something in the chat box. So if you don't necessarily, if there is any technical difficulties on your part, you are at all times able to enter into the chat box. So either way, you can raise your hand to verbalize or type something out. So, but we can give it a minute, as you said, and you have a couple options. So.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any. So I think probably for the interest of time, if no one's wishing to speak, we'll move on to item number 4 is administrator update. So, Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the TAC. So again, I believe I'm starting to lose track, but I believe this is my 5th week, and I'm starting to feel the lay of the land at this point. So with that said, I do want to acknowledge that I do feel we've been probably cutting it pretty close with providing you with agendas and backup materials. And I know I'm asking a lot of you that we're sending to you. So I guess here's my hope moving forward is with respect to everyone's schedule and time to definitely get out of the couple days before. So I know when you receive a pretty thick packet, I definitely would like to give you more time. So I think we're now reaching a point that I've been here long enough to start getting ahead of things. So moving forward, you should start receiving your packet ahead of time, more than a few days. So my hope and goal would be a week ahead of time. That's our plan at this point. So appreciate your patience. Really, that's all I have. I'll save my other comments for the other items we have, Mr. Chair and TAC, but happy to take any questions or comments. Frank accidentally got disconnected. So, or that's what, yeah, you wrote in the chat box. We can see you on the video. Are you there, Frank? He's reconnecting. I feel like I should have more in my report to give him a little bit of time.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry. hit the wrong button.
Okay, Frank, don't hit the wrong button again, please.
No, it will be forever. See, this is why I shouldn't have been chair, so I warned you guys. Okay, so where are we at? Did y'all move on?
Item number 5.
Okay. Item number 5, consideration and possible action to approve the March 11th, 2021 special meeting minutes of the Technical Advisory Committee. Has everyone read the minutes? Are there any comments concerning those minutes before we ask for a motion?
Mr. Chair, I've reviewed the minutes and didn't have any changes myself.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
If no one else has any further comments or recommended changes, I will be happy to make a motion to approve the March 11th, 2021 special meeting minutes of the Technical Advisory Committee.
Okay. Member Cherry made a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Norm Davis. I'll make the second, if you can hear me.
Thank you, Norm. And this might be a little bit of change, but if there's no objections, I'm just going to call for a verbal vote for the meeting. So if someone needs a roll call vote for some reason, please, I think maybe request that within the motion. But can I just get a all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Oh. Sounds like the motion carries. So Vinny, you think that'll work, doing it that way?
That'll work. Thank you, sir.
So item 6, consideration and possible action to recommend approval of the consultant selection for the crash data analysis and highway safety improvement program, the HSIP applications project. Mr. Gallegos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the TAC. As you're aware, we have the request for quotes that has been out and is closed at this point. We have received 5 quotes for the HSIP, or Highway Safety Improvement Program, which again will do 5-year crash data analysis and then also prepare applications to submit to ADOT for the HSIP program. And we have received 5 quotes. You have those in your packet. We were able to discuss them at a work session with you the other day. And you have 5 good quotes, but essentially 2 that fall within the price that we have available of funds for the particular project, being both Burgess and Nyepel and Greenlight Traffic Engineering. So with that said, I'll be happy to take any questions or comments or allow you to for you to have your motion at this point.
Thank you. Anybody want to chime in with questions or comments?
Well, I think as the administrator has pointed out, that we had 2 that kind of came to the top with regards to price being within our budget. That is, of course, Greenlight Traffic Engineering, Burgess and Nyepel, and I think there was a lot of good discussion at our last meeting about the merits of both. For the record, I will point out that Member Latier had put together a nice spreadsheet that gave some good comparison of the 2, and one of the primary differences, I think, was the number of applications. I think Greenlight Traffic Engineering recommended that, or said they could do 3 applications, and Burgess and Nyepel could do up to 5 for the quoted price. Of course, considering the amount of hours spent, that certainly gave some idea as to the amount of time spent per application. It looked like Greenlight Traffic Engineering would probably, while they were only doing 3, it looked like they would be putting some more effort per application into each one. And so there was perceived value, I think, there from the TAC in our prior discussions. So with that in mind, I certainly would be interested in hearing what others, how others feel about it, if there's a favorite of the two.
Thank you, Dan. Anybody else want to provide their opinions? We'll try and go through this.
This is John. I agreed with Dan's discussion. I think the value overall in terms of the cost per application and the distribution of the hours, I think, was very reasonable on the green light proposal.
Okay. Thank you, John. And I'll just reiterate what I mentioned in the working group meeting, that I've worked with at least Greenlight on a study, actually one of these studies when I was over at WACOG, and had no problems with the quality of the work or their ability to meet schedule from my recollections. And have worked with Burgess and Nyepel, not on this particular project, but I know SIMPO has some experience with Burgess and Nyepel, and I haven't heard anything negative from them either. Or some of the other firms, my recommendation would be to stick to those two, mainly because they seem to meet all the requirements but still be a good bargain for SIMPO with their cost proposals. So would anybody else like to provide an opinion?
This is Ian with the City of Prescott. I agree. Burgess and Nyepel and Greenlight were the top two firms and had balanced submittals. I would agree that Greenlight Traffic Engineering would be the preferred selection. Thank you.
Great. So at this point, if we don't have any discussion, I'd entertain maybe a motion for, I think the way staff is looking for this is maybe a motion for a primary and possibly a secondary or runner-up, just in case negotiations fall through, so they can keep moving on this in a timely fashion. So I'll open it up to a motion as well, if anyone would like to make a motion.
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chair. So I'll make a motion to recommend approval to select Greenlight Traffic Engineering as the consultant, the Crash Data Analysis and Highway Safety Improvement Program Applications Project, and have Burgess and Nyepel as our runner-up.
Okay, I have a motion. Can I get a second? Okay. I'll go ahead and put me down as a second on that. I'll second that one. So the motion and a second. If everybody could unmute, we'll just do a verbal. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? Okay, I believe that motion carries. So let me check the agenda. That puts us to a public hearing. So this would be item 7. Call to the public for comment on the draft fiscal year 2022-2023 Unified Planning Work Program, affectionately known as the UPWUP. So I think, Vinny, help me out. Is this where we just open it up to public comment?
Yes, sir. And I'm going to have to get in the habit of calling it the UPWUP. I don't think I've ever called it the UPWUP, but yes, the UPWUP is now it is now out for public comment. And again, to our audience, our members of the public, a Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWUP, is our essentially what we are committing to do for the next 2 years. So fiscal years 22 and 23. It's both our narrative and our budget. It's an accountability of the MPO. It's federally required, but it's also accountability to demonstrate your tax dollars at work, to show, again, an exhaustive list really of all things that administratively and projects-wise that the MPO will be participating in. That has already been out for public comment and will continue to be until the executive board meeting in a few weeks, at which point that'll be the last public hearing and will close. The UPWP is available on the SIMPO website. We're happy to make any accommodations to the public that may not have technology access. You can always come to the SIMPO office. You can get online. So again, we invite members of the public to review it, to look at it, to make comments and ask questions. And again, we hope that Zoom webinar is working for everyone today. And we do have, at this point, 6 people out in the public, if you will, that are more than welcome to express any comments at this point. So again, as the chair said earlier, we would ask that you click on the raise your hand button or type something in the chat box. And if we don't hear anything, then we'll take no comment at this time and move forward.
Okay. I was just testing to see where the hand raise would come in. It comes in on my video there, so I'm not sure where the attendees would come in with a raised hand, but I'm hoping Allison or you, Vinny, would know where that is.
Yeah, and maybe if you could indulge me for a minute, I know we have Tammy DeWitt in the audience, and she was somebody that helped to train us. Tammy, can you, just to make sure so that we feel good, if you're there and you could hear me, if you could raise your hand and so we can at least see the symbol, and then maybe we can unmute you and just okay. So Tammy has her hand raised. We can see her hand raised. And Tammy, are you able to speak?
Yes, when I unmute myself, I can.
Okay. So thank you, Tammy. Mr. Chair, so at this point, yeah, we can. If anyone chooses to raise their hand, we can see it. And as demonstrated, we unmuted Tammy and she unmuted herself. So it is working at this point.
Yeah, what helps sometimes if you have the list of attendees open on your computer, you can see who the attendees are there, and you can see if they raise their hand.
Yeah, that's great. And I do see that. So just as an example real quick, so we do see Tammy DeWitt, Brenda Dickinson, Deb Pastor, Robert Settles, and Tom Armstrong. So grateful to have that there. And again, our apologies to working out the kinks in this first time doing it, but it appears to be working, Mr. Chair.
You guys are doing great.
And thanks, Tammy.
Thank you. And I just found that list myself, so that makes all the sense now. Okay. So, Vinny, I'm not seeing anyone looking to chime in, so help me out. Do we need a motion to close the hearing, or?
No, sir. Actually, that's a good question, Allison. My initial reaction was no.
I guess better than that. Should we have had a motion to open it?
Maybe that's more of the Robert's rules of order here. So I would, Mr. Chair, my apologies. Maybe it is just to cover ourselves. If you would make the motion to open it and then make the motion to close, it would be to be sure, better to be safe.
Okay, and so if the panelists will bear with me, could we have maybe a motion to officially open the public hearing?
I'd be happy to make a motion to officially open the public hearing for the draft fiscal years 22 and 23 UPWUP.
Okay. I'm not,
Vinny, I'm going to keep saying it just for you, man. I'd like to see you smile like that.
Thank you, Dan. I need the smile.
I'll second.
so, and that's John, was that your second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And,
Get an upwell.
all right, so, and I don't know if I came up with that or if that's from Chris Bridges, but, I find it entertaining at least.
I
So-
think Chris liked to use it.
So, all right, so since we're officially open, we'll maybe give another chance for anyone to raise their hand or chime in for public comment. So having seen none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
It's Ian with Prescott. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay,
I'll second. That's Dan.
I have a motion and a second. Well, I guess I should have had a vote. Sorry. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. I've completely messed up, Vinny. Are we good?
We're good, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay. We'll move on to item 8, review and discussion and possible action to recommend approval to post the draft FY 22 through 26 Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program, or MTIP, for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the TAC. So you have been provided with a draft of the, as you just referenced, Mr. Chair, the Transportation Improvement Program for fiscal years 22 to 26. I would ask at this point to go ahead and have some discussion with staff at this point. However, please understand that I am going to request that we go ahead and that you would consider tabling any action on the TIP after further review by staff. I do see a real need for us to go ahead and spend some additional time. As I indicated, my 5th week here is happening, and I feel as though we're trying to make quite a few things happen. And in doing so, realize that we do have some new executive board members that are joining the SIMPO executive board, really from the city of Prescott in Councilmember Good, Councilmember Armstrong from the town of Chino Valley, and then also Mayor Hughes is relatively new. In light of that, in light of a new administrator, a new SIMPO executive board members, I would like to ask of the TAC, of the chair and the TAC members, to really give us more time. Just as a side note, the TIP, or the Transportation Improvement Program, is looking at a 5-year stretch of funding. It is required, it's a required document of the MPO, but it is required every 4 years. What has to be a new TIP is required every 4 years. What SIMPO has got in the tradition of, along with other MPOs, is revisiting it annually, looking to update it every year. So we currently have a TIP in place. SIMPO has a TIP in place that is fiscal year 2020 to 2024. That's the one that we're operating under. If you remember at one of your previous meetings, I worked with you on a list of amendments to bring it up to date. I was hoping to present this new TIP with you today, but in light of new executive board members, my role being returning to the MPO being new, talking with each of you, I really do think in order to really do the region justice and to have a more of a working session with staff, with the TAC and the executive board would be very valuable. And I think at that particular work session in the next few months, to be able to really bring forward the work that you all have been participating with, especially in the the regional transportation plan. As you've all indicated to me, a lot of work has been done in that. Priorities have been set. Some very good hard work, and we want the TIP to be reflective of that. I will say that, you know, fiscal year 22 is here a few months away, and I'm happy to maybe have the discussion with you all about fiscal year 22, since it's starts July the 1st. But again, I do think that as we look to fiscal years 23 and beyond, that I really would like, I would feel better if we had greater dialogue about the projects that we have listed, such as looking at the State Route 69 corridor, 89A corridor, Sundog Connector, Great Western, projects like that. So again, I fully realize these are priorities of the region. We want to honor all of those, but I do think some more work needs to be done with specifically what it is that we want to see the MPO do. So again, we want, you know, I keep hearing more planning, which we want to honor that. We want to be a planning organization as we are. So what I'm asking for today as the administrator and as staff is to table the TIP discussion and allow us to circle back with you all and have a more of a working session on the TIP, so that you can have the time to not only digest what we have currently, but maybe some changes. Just one clarification, if I can, before I turn it over to you for questions and comments. I do want to talk about fiscal year 22, which again starts on July the 1st. We do have listed the Great Western extension, and as it's shown on the TIP now, we have funding for about $197,000 between fiscal years 22 and 23. In light of recent conversations with ADOT Finance, we were able to reconcile several different items, which took several weeks, but the positive things that came out of it, number one, we were able to clarify that we do have funding in fiscal year 21, which we're currently in, for the 89A on-ramp study. So we are working with you to move that project forward. That funding will come out of fiscal year 21, so that's very positive news. In addition to that, instead of, if you want to proceed with Great Western, instead of the funding going between fiscal years 22 and 23, at this point, we do have the funding available fully in fiscal year 22. So again, just as a note, we can have $197,000, as was previously indicated, between 2 years. We now have it in a single year. So it's a little bit of bookkeeping, and I'm sorry if there's any confusion on that, but we did get clarification. We could move forward. However, I want to put a big asterisk next to the Great Western for some information I just received recently. And I would ask Ian for a little bit of help on this. And I'm sorry, Ian, we didn't get a chance to touch base before this meeting. But I was just notified that the city of Prescott, and I've been invited to participate in the city of Prescott's planning efforts for the northern Prescott area around the airport. There's a study underway or evaluation of the land use all around the airport. And as I understand it, would be also in that potential Great Western extension area. And if I can ask Ian a question, as I've been invited to participate, Ian, I don't know what the timeline on that is. If you can share with us when that's expected to finish, because I think that will factor into our Great Western conversation today.
Yeah, Vinny, I think the study you're talking about is it's obviously gonna be ongoing over this next several months. I don't have the exact date for you right now, but it's basically gonna be going on through spring and into parts of the summer. But it's relatively a quick study, so I would anticipate maybe everything wrapped up in the next 3 months. But I can get you that exact stuff, shortly here. Was that I don't know are you invited to the, participate in that? Some of that planning stuff is coming up shortly here.
Yeah, I am. Actually, I've been invited. There's a focus
On
group
Friday?
today, and I'll be participating. It's after the TAC meeting. I'll be participating in the meetings moving forward. They had an individual meeting to bring me up to speed, but I forgot the most important part was the timeline. And I think in light of what Ian's saying, and I appreciate the information, I think that needs to be part of our SIMPO discussion. I know there's a real eagerness to hit the ground running July 1st for Great Western, and staff wants to support that, and we can work with you to start to talk about a scope. But I would strongly recommend that we let what the city of Prescott is currently doing play out, so that we have the more current information, most especially with land use for that particular area. And then I would also want to note that in speaking with the chair, Frank Marbury, the town of Chino Valley is also looking to update their general plan in the next year, and then consider possibly some other transportation master plans or something in the near future. And I think in light of that, again, these are all things that I think it would just be good planning on our part to look at what the city of Prescott is doing, what the town of Chino Valley is doing, to look at our partnership economy of scale. So I guess please, as I wrap this up, hear me out, that I'm with you, that Great Western remains a priority. I'm just trying to look at where the best strategy is to deliver that or to move that forward. So as staff, we're completely open to have discussions, but there are some really significant adjacent efforts underway. And Frank, I don't know if I can call on you for what you said the other day about the general plan and maybe some other future plans, but I do think, again, that will impact how we might approach Great Western.
Sure, thanks, Vinny, and yeah, I will state that I think it's of course in the upcoming budget that the town's working on now, but I think it's pretty solid that the town plans to start doing its general plan update. It was scheduled for 2024, but we found some pretty significant deficiencies that council wants to take care of, and so they plan on starting that in July. I'm not sure how long that'll take. I've been told upwards of the whole year, because it's a major general plan update. And with that, they do plan to have a transportation component within that plan, and maybe even spur a transportation master plan or an update to our 2007 small area transportation study to either coincide or follow that. So I wanted to point that out to Vinny and the rest of the TAC, that I know that might affect some of the land use along Chino Valley. Is we're small town population, but we've got 64 square miles that extends a pretty good ways east with the entire Perkins Ranch. So that might affect that component, and I don't know what the effect it would have on the update of that study. I just didn't know if we would want to wait for the results of that general plan update before updating the study, so we wouldn't have to update the update right away. Was kind of my thought.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what I'll do is I'll open it up for questions and comments at this point. Again, I would just note that staff will continue to work on a scope for Great Western. We realize that remains a priority. We just want to be very sensitive and aware of the activities around it, as possibly in Chino Valley and now the city of Prescott. And again, my hope is if you'll support this idea, is that when we circle back with you again in a working session in the next few months, that again, we'll talk about fiscal year 23 and beyond. That's our main objective. But I would also want to bring back Great Western to that discussion and see, let again what Prescott's doing, what Chino Valley may do. In a few months will give us a little more time to understand and really be able to present where SIMPO can be part of that equation. But again, my recommendation, if you will, accept it, is to table the tip at this point. And I'll be happy to take questions or comments on anything I've covered, most especially on fiscal year 22. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the TAC.
Chair?
Okay.
If I
Yeah.
may.
Go ahead, Dan.
So just to add another layer to things here, the Yavapai County is currently going through its comprehensive plan update as well. It started, I think, back in December, if I'm not mistaken, and is ongoing. And there is definitely a transportation element to that plan as well. And I think as things progress, we will certainly be meeting with, that's being run through the Development Services Department of the county, but we will certainly be meeting with them and directing them, specifically to the 2045 Regional Transportation Plan, the current version of our Verde Valley Master Transportation Plan, and then probably sharing things like our current 5-year plan for Regional Roads Program and whatnot with them. So not sure the timeline of that, but it's a pretty major update, and I suspect it could go on another 6 months to a year, if I'm not mistaken. And they're taking in input from a lot of the communities around the county at this point. So Vinny, if you happen to hear about it, or maybe reach out to Development Services, I know you have some close ties over there still. Perhaps there might be some value in just being a little bit involved, at least peripherally, in that process too. So.
Mr. Chair and Member Cherry, yeah, actually, Dan, Dave Williams and I have been playing phone tag, and it was like 3 minutes before our TAC meeting today, we touched base. He extended an invitation for me to be, and forgive me, I don't know the name of their different panels or groups, but he extended an invitation for a seat for me on one of the stakeholder groups, whichever it was. So Simpo will have a seat at the table. I appreciate Yavapai County and Dave reaching out to me. Just like the city of Prescott with their North Prescott study, we'll be participating in both, and appreciate all those points. Dan, thank you.
Thanks, Vinny.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion?
For the record, I don't have any objection to tabling things for a little while some of these things move forward. We get the executive board new members up to speed, and I think we all understand where our priorities are for the next year or two anyway. And if there's time to update the MTIP at a later time, then I'm comfortable with that. Okay.
Thank you, Dan. And I'll just put in my opinion from Chino Valley. I don't want to necessarily neglect, especially the Great Western Corridor, because I think it's very important to Simpo and Chino Valley. It's just I want to make sure we don't spin our wheels when we shouldn't. But I don't want to, definitely don't want to kick it to the side and try and ignore it. I just want to make sure the timing's right. My opinion.
I'm in concurrence on that, Frank, and I presume Norm is as well, but maybe he would like to weigh in.
Okay. Not hearing anything. Vinny, can you see the chat?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay, I just wanted to note that there was a chat comment from Tammy DeWitt that said planning suggested it due to they are looking at the traffic circulation in that area. So is that Prescott planning?
Yes, sir. That Tammy would be with the city of Prescott. So yes, that would be a comment from the city.
My apologies.
That would concur with, again, with the work that they're doing for land use, and they did meet with me, and they had several circulation questions, and the stakeholder meeting or the focus group meeting today, forgive me, I believe Richard Parker from the town of Prescott Valley will be involved, myself, the assistant city manager for Prescott. It's a small group, but I should have quite a bit more information today But yeah, there is a circulation component related to their real land use focus. So I'll find out more, but it's actively happening now.
Frank, I'd like to comment if we got a minute, you can hear me.
Absolutely, Norm. We're looking to hear from you.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know exactly. Just on the town of Prescott Valley's perspective, you know, TAC's probably where I pushed this pretty hard here a couple months ago. I made the comment that there's significant lot splitting going out that way. I know we had TAC discussion that it's a priority of Prescott Valley to take a look at. I'm glad that the planning is actually taking place. So I'm encouraged by all this talk today about, you know, there is a lot of land use planning going on out there. So I'm encouraged with that. So yes, I'm much happier than I was a month ago about, you know, updating that study that's gotten to be 12 years old. I would like to add on the NTIF, if I could, the funding. I would like to see the table 4 updated to give us an idea what we're moving forward with if we talk with our executive board. But I'd like those two things to match, because currently it calls out Great Western in FY22 as 79,000. So maybe Vince hasn't had time to update that, but it doesn't match the tabular earlier in the document.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Member Davis, Norm, yeah, definitely we will, and that's part of it too. Norm, is I'm just noticing a few glitches in what we're bringing forward. Allison and I actually do have an updated. I don't, unless there's more discussion. I wasn't going to bring it up today. I was hoping we could table it, but we were prepared just in case you wanted to dig a little bit deeper, go in the weeds. We do have it cleaned up, but again, my preference would be that we go ahead and provide that to you, give you some time, and then again, we have a working session. So I appreciate you noting that, Norm, and I've just been made aware of it, and we're working on it for sure.
It's just a fresh set of eyes. I mean, I'm not trying to get in the weeds on you, just want them to match. So
yeah, that's how
I have a fresh set of eyes. I can look at that. It's a priority of Prescott Valley to get the Great Western Corridor studied. You know, we're in place. I think the TAC's aware. I sent out some documents of what the town is planning, so I didn't get any response back. And I'm just happy that if you can take and incorporate that into your discussions with your own, you know, elected bodies, that's what Prescott Valley is looking for. Because that exhibit we sent around is one that, you know, is an established document here that we're using for our planning purposes. So you could use that as the Prescott Valley perspective for our particular neck of the woods. And keep in mind, we all meet in the middle. My understanding of this corridor, the nice thing is we're all kind of matching at both of our ends. So in my opinion, it's a great effort to cooperate, you know, collectively on all our general plans to make this corridor a realization other than people moving independently. So I'm happy to hear that other member agencies have things in play, because it's an important corridor in Prescott Valley's mind.
Thank you, Norm, and I'll just let you know from Chino Valley's perspective, we'll make sure, at least I'll personally make sure that as the committees move forward with our general plan, we'll look to incorporate those documents you provided us, and might even give you and Vinny and even Dan or Ian, for that matter, calls as we need to try and keep it on the front burner there, because I think it's probably one of the most important corridors to consider for the area, especially when you look at the capacity of 89 and how it correlates to 89A and 69. So I appreciate that, and want to personally let you know that I'm not going to let it drop, and we'll do our best on Chino Valley's end as well. So.
You know, I might add too, I was encouraged with Vinny's comment that, you know, there may be an opportunity as we come up with this scope with the transportation plans going on right now. It may not be in the current scope for each of the member agencies in this general plan. There may be an opportunity to listen in and this next fiscal year provide that unknown scope at this point on how it melds well in the next document that we need to plan with ADOT and the feds on what that document needs to look like to continue momentum moving forward. So I don't know, but typically out of a good planning study, like the general plan that's being done by the county and Chino, it sounds like, maybe that's where the scope comes out on what you want to see that's not included in your own individual scopes for that melded scope to include all agencies, even the city of Prescott and the town weighing in. I'm optimistic that with Vinny's expertise, he'd be able to, maybe that could be an opportunity with the funding we have earmarked to get that study to work with all 3 or 4 of those studies, if I make sense there. And I'm encouraged that, yeah, maybe over the next 6 months, that opportunity may lend itself and come to light.
And Mr. Chair and Member Davis, I appreciate Norm's comments, and I guess I want to definitely, that's my hope, is in these next couple months, again, appreciation being participating or being invited to participate in these various things. But I want to come back, strategize with staff, and do exactly what Norm just outlined for us. And I do think if you table this today, it will give staff the opportunity to do what Norm just identified. That's my hope, is that I can do more work with the county, Chino Valley, Prescott, and so forth, to say, all right, let's really drill down here what it is you're achieving, and then as what comes out of that, what can SIMPO not reinvent the wheel or duplicate work, but honor the work that's being done. So yeah, I think Norm summarized it, Mr. Chair, and at this point, unless there's any other questions or comments, it would just be really beneficial to table this and do what Norm just suggested at this point.
Okay, Vinny, would you recommend tabling this until the next meeting, or do you need a little more time than that?
We would need more time than that. It's up to you, Mr. Chair, how you would like to request for that motion. I don't have a timeline at this point, but we won't be prepared for the next meeting. I would expect at least 2 months, but it's up to you. You're more than happy if you would like an update at the next meeting. I have no problem with that, but I don't expect us to have everything resolved by that point. Okay.
Yeah, just my preference is to usually table to a date certain if we can. So maybe throw this out to the committee. What about if we table it until the June meeting, recognizing that at that point, if it's not ready, we might possibly need to table that again, but that at least gives us something on our calendar to where it doesn't drop. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Okay. Well, at this point, I'd entertain some sort of a motion if someone would like to make a motion. Okay. Well, how about, I think it's okay for me to make a motion, so I'll make a motion that we table the FY 22 through 26 draft MTIP for public comment, the posting of it, until the June meeting, and that's my motion.
I'll second, Frank.
Okay. And I'll just say for discussion, also, Vinny, at that time, if we come back in June and need more time, then maybe we discuss that then, knowing that, not forcing you, but I want to make sure we keep it in our minds and hearts.
No problem, Mr. Chair. And I would add the comment that I fully plan on providing an update at the next meeting. I will let you know where we're at, so you'll have an idea. I would also expect communications between then, but I appreciate the time till June. That'll give us enough time to know where we're at. So you'll receive updates, but yeah, I would fully expect to communicate before and at that June meeting. And if additional time is needed, you'll be definitely aware of it prior to that meeting. Okay.
And for my clarification, that won't affect anything going forward into the next fiscal year, being in June or possibly July.
Good question, Mr. Chair and members of the TAC. No, it won't, because again, we still have our TIP in place, which is 20 to 24, and it has current amendments that you've been involved with. What may happen in either the next month or the month after is we may bring additional amendments to make sure a little bit to Norm's point, of some of the numbers not quite lining up. So we may still need to bring an amendment back. So you may see that. Our hope was to not do that and just adopt a new tip. So if anything, that's what you might receive at this point. But either way, we will communicate with you.
Okay. Is there any other discussion before we call for a vote? Okay. If there's no objection, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. So item 9, that's my favorite item. So with that, I think, Vinny, we're ready to adjourn.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the TAC, members of the public. Appreciate everyone's patience. Have a good day. We'll see you.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone.